Hi, I'd like to introduce you to a new friend of mine that I met at Superbooth a few weeks ago. He's an Australian guy called David Haberfeld, and he's actually a doctor, or in the sense that he has a doctorate in acid techno, specifically in performing live improvised acid techno. As you might know, I've been developing my own techno live set, so I figured we had a lot to talk about, and that's what this video is about. This video is essentially a call between me and David, where we talk about live performance, improvisation, art creation, just philosophy. Before we get into it, I think there's two more things that I'd like to share about David. One is that he has a company called Melbourne Instruments where they make these synthesizers that you might have seen. Their look is quite iconic. For example, this is footage of their synthesizer called the Nina, and what you're seeing is basically motorized rotary controls so that when you load up a preset in the synthesizer, all the knobs move to the correct position so you're not guessing what position the knob should be at. And he told me a little secret is that these knobs actually use the hardware that they use in drone motors. So they're really manufactured for crazy durability and for like endless use. So I figured that was kind of cool. And the other thing that I wanted to share was that I got a chance to see David perform live as his alias Honeysmack. And seeing him perform live was a very fun experience, very visceral, because he's got a very kind of an acid punk aesthetic to the music that he plays. It's very machine drum based with acid riffs, and he has no problem really connecting with the crowd, even turning off the music, talking on the microphone before bringing back in crazy loops. And it's a very vital and kind of punky way of making music and of really involving the audience in a live performance, which is something you can never get by putting on music on Spotify at your home. Now, without further ado, let's get into the conversation. And remember, there's little chapter markings at the bottom, so if you want to skip to a particular topic, feel free to. Enjoy. Dr. Haberfeld.
Can you see me
I
or
can
hear
see
me?
you and I can hear you.
Can you feel me though?
I can feel you. How you doing? How you doing? Wow, what an angle. This is how you do it.
Oh, my fake background.
Oh, it's fake. Oh, that's so disappointing. Oh my God. I was like, what an incredible way to set up your cameras and whatever. Okay.
You know, people say to me, "Oh, is that a fake background?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's a fake background."
You know, I kind of launched this storyline a few months ago of like, I'm going to develop a live set. And so I've kind of been bringing people along on the sort of, what am I learning at each step, you know? So I'm sort of bringing people along on that storyline. And a big part of that storyline was meeting Circo in Amsterdam at ADE last year. Then we did a few calls and he, you know, so a lot of my early development of my live sets is very much influenced by like concepts that Circo would be talking about, tools that Circo would be using. And I feel like there's so much diversity out there of what people are doing in live sets. I just love to, you know, get other universes to open up. And so I think there's like a lot of richness there.
There's quite a common thread amongst all of us, you know what I mean? Which I think is actually, you know, should be celebrated because, you know, more of us should be doing this. So that's why, you know, I'm happy. I mean, that's literally what I did my PhD on was, you know, acid techno bangers and being an improviser. So,
hell yeah.
I mean, I started out making this in an improvised way because there were no computers. There was just a 909 and 303 and an 808 and a 101. And you know, when software started to come about, software was all just MIDI. There was no audio. It was just purely, it was like a complex MIDI sequencer.
Yeah.
And I did realize, but at the time, you know, as my practice progressed, I kept going to like software and never connected with it, you know, because I was always used to being on hardware. Not that there's anything wrong with software, but just like, and then as things like, I remember being shown a demo of was called Sound Designer 2, which became Pro Tools.
Ah, right. Okay, I didn't know that. Yeah.
And I was at, you know, I was at a university, I think I was studying, and we got this kind of preview from the university, from the distributor. I think like, this can manipulate audio. This is like amazing, you know.
Yeah,
But it
yeah.
was completely out of our reach. It was just for universities and institutes, you know, and big studios. Like, you know,
Sure.
I didn't buy a computer. I couldn't afford a computer till I was, you know, early '90s, mid '90s.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Second-hand computer, and it was no audio. I've still got the computer. Uh, but then, like when Ableton came along, I did some beta testing with Ableton version 2 because that's when the audio came in,
Right. Yeah.
and it was kind of fun. But I then realized this is not for me. You know,
Yeah.
and I would never call myself an improviser because I didn't know what that meant. I thought that was reserved for jazz.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah, sure.
I thought that was an elitist, you know, music theory paradigm
Yeah.
because I can't read, write, or know any form of music theory.
Sure.
So much so that I don't even respect it. I think I said this to you, right?
I can't
I
remember
actually,
maybe.
I don't even respect it. So I did a PhD
Yeah.
in music composition,
Yeah.
but I don't have any form of traditional training.
Yeah.
So, you know, in an academic sense, you say that my tradition is based on electronic dance music in a very kind of not a pure sense, but you know, the tradition started in the late '80s. You know,
Sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
producers trying to create disco, and
Yeah.
this is what happened with accidental gear. So that's where my tradition resides, and quite simply, I use the studio as the instrument.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't see a drum machine or a synthesizer as an instrument
Right.
at all. I see them as modules in the bigger instrument. So the mixer is just as important as the thing creating a sound or the thing making the drum sound.
Right. That's a cool
So that's the
perspective.
yeah. So that's the theory, and it's like that's not new to me. People like Brian Eno called it the meta student, the meta instrument,
Sure.
and dub artists would do the same thing because they would have the same resource, the same tapes, and they would remix.
I'm
So
fascinated that you mentioned dub artists now because my mind was going there, and I've been sort of following a daydreaming thread at the moment of like of learning a bit more about like dub workflows and sort of because it's all very I've like heard of it but I don't really know it through experience, you know. And then I'd seen that the surgeon at Superbooth.
yeah,
I saw a little video there of I think Sonic State where he walks through his gear, and one of the main things is he's got the mixer plus a dub delay that's fed back on
yeah,
itself, and I was like, oh,
yeah.
that's so fucking cool. I've got the same mixer, so I contacted now the people who do that dub delay. They're sending me one, or like I just bought one off them, and it's on the way now. So once that arrives, I want to do a little chapter of like dub mixing. Like what can I learn? What can people teach me? What can I experiment with? You know?
Well,
Uh,
I think the whole electronic dance music paradigm doesn't matter what genre. If people know about dub or not, they are definitely using you know methods employed
sure.
by dub artists because it was you know Cool Herc who was a Jamaican in New York who brought that kind of sound system
Yeah.
mindset to, and that's how hip hop was created. You know, so
Yeah.
and the whole MC and DJ reverts to the whole dub culture. And the
Sure.
weird thing about dub culture is that you've got Jamaican music trying to replicate or trying to emulate, you know, funk and soul over the other side, you know, of the planet. You know, so it's a
Yeah.
kind of interesting merge. And the DJ in dub is the MC. This is the weird thing. So
Okay.
they called the person on the microphone the DJ.
I didn't know that. Ah.
Yeah. So and they only they only had one turntable. If you had two turntables with the sound system, you considered really rich and privileged.
Right. Oh.
So so one of the aspects of using the dub delay and sirens was that they only had one turntable, so they had to keep the crowd entertained while they flipped the record or put another record on.
That's crazy.
So the delay would actually help fill the space while they flip the record or put something else on. I mean, there's a million different stories.
That's crazy. I need to read
It's
more
kind of
about
interesting,
this.
but one of the main things that dub did was that the mixer is the instrument.
Yeah.
So it's like, as you would know, muting a kick drum in electronic dance music is a form of, is a passage, is part of the arrangement.
Sure.
Which is what dub did as well, because they only had these tapes which they would have to bring in and out certain tracks.
Yeah.
So that's all borrowed from dub, you would say.
Love that. Oh my God.
So the dub delay thing is like very kind of literal. It's dub delay. Oh, that's dub, But it's the actual mixer and how the mixer is used. If you see even like people like Mad Professor, even in modern days, he would use like the ADAT machines. That's all he would bring, and then we'll just literally do these mixes on the fly.
That's wild. Yeah, I really wanna experiment more with that, because I also I noticed from some of the footage that I see, like Fortet sharing and stuff. I see when Fortet, like, he gets a piece of gear, he'll like put it on his dining room table next to his mixer and like start generating loops with it, and then on the mixer be bringing in and out like delay effects and recording all of that and basically turning that into his own little sample pack for himself. And I was like, that's so fun. That like stretches the expressivity of the instrument so much in such an interesting way. Yeah, I wanna.
And delays, when I started at university, we couldn't afford samplers. The first samplers, well, first of all, we're using tape loops. And then it was digital delays that could hold 1 or 2 seconds of sound.
Yeah.
So you could create like a kick drum and a hi-hat, and then when the early samplers came out, you only had like 3 or 4 or 5 seconds of sampling time, but that's a lot to create like a drum kit.
Sure. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so again, borrowing from dub and delay and all of that.
Hell yeah.
And like, the thing was when Surgeon came to Australia, was it 18 months ago, something like that, I got the support gig for it.
Nice.
Right?
Yeah.
And I played before him, and and he was DJing, he wasn't playing live, and he came and my manager just said, Surgeon's here, and he's just asked if I was playing. That's all he wanted to say. And he sat in the DJ booth, because I was on the dance floor. I normally don't play in the DJ booth or on stage. I don't like to at all. So what you saw in Berlin was kind of out of my element. I don't like to play on stage.
But where do you usually like just low surrounded by an audience, or how do you mean on stage?
In the middle of the dance floor.
In the middle of the dance floor. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. So Tony was filming me from underneath.
I can see.
It was, it was a special moment, because he's one of my heroes, great inspiration. And I couldn't get to talk to him because after I finished, he was DJ.
Sure.
But he sent me the video, and at Superbooth, just before he played, I went up and said, "Oh, hello," and he remembered me. So I thought, I was chuffed that he still remembered.
That's super cool. Yeah, I can totally see that one being one of those just act casual moments, and Surgeon's there filming your life, and you're like, just chill, just relax. It's fine.
And my manager, I didn't know, because I'm so focused on what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But my manager took some video or photos of Surgeon. He took a photo of Surgeon filming me or something. It was quite funny.
That's the one that you hang up on your wall, just Surgeon filming you. Yeah. I can see it. I could be wrong about this, but I don't necessarily know if the Nina is part of that as a building block, because there's not a lot of roles for like a polysynth in my live sets sound palette. You know what I mean? And I could be wrong about that, but for me right now,
Well,
though,
no, I don't think there's any right or wrong here.
yeah, yeah,
So in one sense, I agree with you. But if I was to put my Melbourne Instruments cap on,
yeah.
the Honeysmack cap on, I can say, well, the show that you saw had the Nina front and center.
Did it have?
Right?
Because I actually had no idea what gear you had up on stage.
Yeah, so I had like a little modular, had the Nina,
Ah,
an
cool.
Octatrack, and 303. That was it.
Yeah, dope.
Right. So
Cool.
because of the new, Nina now has a new 4-track polyphonic polymeter
Yeah,
sequencer,
yeah.
and we've included 64 noise types, so it has kind of,
Mm,
percussive building blocks
yeah,
to complement a 909 and the modular and all of that.
super
So,
cool.
so what I was doing was I had some pre-patterns that I just kind of loopy patterns that then I was resampling into the Octatrack
Yeah.
live,
Oh, right.
right?
Interesting. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've never done that. Like I've heard more people say that. Like I resample it into the Octatrack, and I've never messed with the Octatrack. But right now, like the only polyphonic synth that I have is right in front of me is my Prophet right here.
Yeah,
And so that's kind of if I decide I want to do something polyphonic or do some chords or pads, it tends to be that. But I
yeah.
am very curious to try out the way that the step sequencer. I want to learn about like I always find it interesting how people conceive of a step sequencer and like how each step sequencer is slightly different because it's trying to get different outcomes or something. And I think I'm just curious to see what the Nina has.
Well, that's my approach. My approach is literally I'm colliding all these different sequences. So I don't have a master sequencer.
Yeah,
I don't view a pattern on one machine and a pattern on another as being two patterns that have to, play together.
sure. No. Yeah.
So I write, if I've got some pre-written patterns, they're not prescriptive.
Yeah.
It's just a whole lot of shit. And it's
I
like,
agree with
it's that
that.
whole kind of analogy. It's a palette of paint. So I'm just grabbing bits
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
color. And if they mix well, great. If not,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
so I have to constantly listen and think about what's going on because I don't have any preconceived
Agreed.
ideas of what it's going to sound like, where it's going to go, and allow the
I
accidents to collide. And
fully agreed. Fully agreed. And I think there's merit to like when some people like completely clear their sequencers before a gig. I see the philosophy of that, but I do when I'm performing solo have a few patterns in the barrel because I feel this like a certain pressure to keep it interesting or something when you're completely solo. And then sometimes I would like a melody line that has a certain shape to it that like is that feels considered. And I might in the hour and a half that I did at Superbooth, I think I have maybe 3 of such patterns. But for me, they're like milestones where I'm like, oh, I'm arriving at that pattern. I know that once I put that into a sound source, it's gonna give something that has like a certain attitude to it that I wouldn't come up with that by smashing the random button or by blindly doing something.
yeah, I have that as well. That's what perhaps the 303 might do,
Yeah,
or
exactly. It's a 303 style kind of sequence.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. So, or what maybe a loop that I have in the Octatrack. I actually call that candy. You know what I mean?
yeah,
It's
yeah.
kind of like it's almost like a security blanket,
It is. Yeah, yeah,
right? But the stuff that works, the stuff that I find works the best is the stuff that I think is really shit. And this is the irony, right? Because people will always ask me after you, when you play that section, like, so I don't have any kind of particular tracks or sections
yeah.
and when I think something is not working, it's weird because that's when the people are reacting the strongest. So that's why I have to be on the dance floor
Yeah,
and get that feedback from the audience constantly.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
So
it.
their part, it's really important, I think, in electronic dance music because I think it's been eroded completely, almost eroded, which is the audience, the dance floor, are part of the performance.
Yeah.
That's what disco did. Disco moved, you know, the live band and performers on stage onto this, you know, highly produced record or production that was then performed by the DJ. So the paradigm shift went from artists on stage to the people dancing is the focus.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I think we lost some of that with the myth of the DJ and all of that. And it's like, no, like, you know, I couldn't think of anything more fucking boring in my whole fucking life
Yeah.
than watching a DJ. Unless it's like a hip hop DJ who has like this incredible, you know, back and forward skills and really kind of juggling records and mixing. What are you watching? You know, you're supposed to be listening.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know?
I mean, I found it interesting. There's like this parallel. I'm in a beginner's class of improv theater right now, right?
Yeah.
And I find it super interesting because I started it because it has nothing to do with music or my YouTube channel, and of course I'm finding parallels everywhere. You know.
Of course there is.
Yeah, yeah.
All performing arts has parallels.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so I found even yesterday that I had a very deep insight into like, if you think that you have something impressive to show the audience and you try to show the audience something impressive, it's not going to work like that.
Exactly.
It's not going to work like that. They're not going to go,
right.
or you know, they might, but it's kind of lifeless. What is really vital is you fucking up on stage, owning it, and turning that into something, because then the audience is with you. They're like, oh my God, I saw you fuck up, but it was great and I had such a good time, you know.
And that is I couldn't agree more, because that's what I always say. If you go watch a band on stage, the part that you're remembering is not whether they replicated that track as you heard it on the CD or the recorded version of it. The part that you're going to remember is when the lead singer spoke to the audience.
Yeah.
Or there was a little hiccup of some type, you know, because people will say to me, oh, did you fuck up there? It's like there are no fuck ups.
Yeah.
A fuck up is when you can't hear me doing anything. The sound is gone from the whole venue. Or
Yeah,
power.
yeah.
That's a fuck up. But there's no, I don't have any preconceived what's going to happen. And you're right, like with the improv thing, the thing that you think you've worked really hard on and, you know, really crafted, and then you play it and the crowd have no reaction to it because they don't understand what you're doing. They're just hearing the sum of all the parts.
Yeah.
You know? And like an actor who's improvising is like, well, someone is just viewing the sum of everything that you're doing at that moment.
Yeah.
That's all it is. It's like you're not making music on stage. You've been making music your whole fucking life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
It's like when I used to teach, you know, composition and music, it's like students would say things like, oh, I have to work more on this. And I look at them like, what will you do that you haven't done already? You know?
Yeah.
The way to finish this is to just say, it's done. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. It's like, you can't repair it because I don't know what you're repairing. And they would say things, oh, well, the F chord or something. I'm like looking like, you know, I actually don't understand what you're saying.
Yeah. I think we get very in our heads about what we think music should sound like. I had a coaching session last week that really flabbergasted me. I had like someone showed me their track in progress, and they wanted me to tell them how they could make it sound more professional. And I was like, what do you mean? I think I know what you mean, but also it's like profoundly, maybe profoundly the wrong question to ask. But I understand why you're asking it in your context, but also it's like the enemy of art. It's like if Picasso were to say, how do I make my paintings more professional? It's like, what the fuck are you talking about?
But you hit it right on the head. You know, there's the difference between a hobbyist and a professional. And the only difference is it's not about the gear, how they made it, the equipment, the tools, or the skill even. It's got nothing to do with it. It's just a professional says, this is done, and I've let it go into the world. It's not mine anymore. And a hobbyist mindset is that I'm always working on it. There's always something I can fix, or there's always something I need to repair, because they don't have the constraint of time. They don't have any limitation.
Interesting.
And limitation is the greatest driving force for any form of creativity. It doesn't matter, any art form, any performing art. If you've got no limitation, then you're never going to finish something.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah.
The art isn't complete, because art is supposed to be experienced.
Yeah.
Art is not insular. We've been told for many years that art is this kind of insular practice, but it's not. Art is supposed to be shared. It's not art until it's exhibited or performed.
Sure. Yeah.
So people who, like you say, people who say, "Oh, can you help me how it sounds better?" And you're right, because I used to get that all the time as a lecturer. Like, you know, how do I improve this?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, you know, the best question is why?
Yeah.
Why do you want to prove this? Because it's about one's own fears. I think what I was going to say is, you came up with that triangle, didn't you? You know, that's the best thing to put in people's faces.
Yeah.
Is it finished? Go check out this triangle. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the best answer, because what people, unfortunately, I think also music manufacturers and software and hardware have a part to play in this. It's the whole marketing of gear, where, you know, and it goes back to even like guitars and all forms of music technology and audio technology, which is like, if you buy this, you can sound like this.
Yeah.
But people think that, oh, I need to achieve a particular quality of sound.
Yeah.
But when people learn about the artists that they love and their heroes, they realize that actually how they made it, how they record it, was on really rudimentary. It was nothing really special. Of course, there are artists who have this incredible privilege to studios and gear, and these days, those barriers are all completely gone.
Yeah.
That doesn't exist anymore.
Sure.
And I think I've seen in some of your videos, you've touched upon it. You know, you have things like Ableton or Cubase or Logic, and there's no limitation.
Yeah.
So you have to build in your own limitation. Otherwise, you will just explore a piece of software and not make anything.
Yeah.
Anyway, you know all this because you're really good at fucking, you know, the transfer of knowledge. You know,
I don't know, and there's a lot of this stuff that I'm just figuring out as I go. All right, figure it out again and again, and come to the same realizations again and again. And I find this, I find this this thing very, like, I have a weird relationship to the idea of finishing and publishing music, because I became like, the YouTube channel got a certain prominence when me as an artist really had not figured my shit out yet, you know? And I'm a bit like, oh, I don't necessarily know what are people expecting of me, and then what do I want to do, you know? And I'm finally giving space the last few months to what I really want to do. But going down that path, I also meet those old demons of, yeah, but wouldn't you want to sound like that? Or wouldn't you want to sound like that? And yet my artistic intuition is bringing me down a certain path. But if you'll permit me, like, the last few weeks I've been creating a lot of music, and every time that I'm making the music, it's very much I'm exploring textures, like a really broken down textured version of techno. And then I've got all these sketches that I'm like, oh, I think they really have an attitude. That's cool. And then I know that, like, my friend, for example, is waiting for a demo for his record label, that I'm supposed to deliver a demo. And I'm like looking at my sketches, looking at his label and going, like, he's not going to like that. But
you don't know that. This is the whole thing.
Yeah.
Right? And you know that this is the irony, is that I hear what you're saying, and I agree with you. I'm not dismissing or minimizing it. But the thing is that we actually don't know what people like.
Yeah.
Right?
True.
Because if someone likes or dislikes something, it doesn't matter who they are. If it's the lay person, if it's a record label, if it's one of your hero producers, if it's... The reason why someone likes something is, I think, has a lot to do, and I know this is philosophical, it has more to do with how they're feeling at that particular time,
Yeah,
right?
that's fair.
If someone doesn't like something, and this is the whole fear that a lot of young people have, I guess, lots of people have, is like, will people like this? It's like, why does that matter?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It actually doesn't matter, because you can't explain to people what you did, why you did, and how you did it, because most people don't understand,
That's true.
right? So they don't know. And then even if you have that technical knowledge and skill, doesn't mean that, if I don't like it, that you've done something wrong. It's completely emotional, right?
Yeah.
I don't like it because, I had a bad day, I like it because I was in the right frame of mind. And so you can't make music to people's specification. You can't.
No, that's
and
true.
if people try to do that, they become very unhappy. The
Yeah.
only thing people can, I think, I've kind of distilled it down to this. People can only make music that they love, because your happiness is not going to come from other people. If you love it, you put enough music out there, or you perform enough, people will love it or resonate with people.
Sure.
And here's the kicker, right? If they don't like it and everyone hates your art, go to the biggest fear that we all have. The people fucking hate it. They think you're an idiot, you're stupid, you don't know what you're doing, it sounds horrible, it's out of time, whatever it is. If you were happy making it, that's all that matters.
True.
So
Yeah.
your happiness only can come from, the individual, not externally.
That's
And I believe success comes from a measure of time, not money or likes or all those other metrics that corporations have.
Sure.
And if you do it long enough, most people should be able to resonate with an audience.
I agree.
If you do it long enough.
I agree.
But if you do it for a short period of time, and even if you get the accolades, and you stop doing it, then was it worth doing? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's an interesting question. I don't know, and don't want to, misjudge people who maybe had short success and don't make music anymore. But it's like, we do this from a place of passion first and foremost.
Yeah.
We don't do it to make money, or everyone needs to make money to live in the modern world. But it's not it shouldn't be the trigger or the driver, I guess.
It is sometimes very liberating to just try to forget about everything music industry related and just say, hey, well, look, if I stay in good mental health, I have the freedom to explore this territory for the rest of my life, and no one can stop me. Like it's a very liberating. And
I totally agree.
Yeah.
I totally agree. But and I'm not a mental health expert, but I believe, having taught creatives and mentored, music creators for quite some time, I really believe that, those who do have poor mental health can be, a large part of it can be addressed by just stop giving a fuck about what other people think about what you're doing.
Yeah, true.
And do something that makes you happy. If you can do even small things that make you happy, small steps, you'll create a pathway that you will be happy. And hopefully, look, I know mental health can also be completely, chemical and biological. Sure. I'm not, not suggesting that just be happy.
Yeah. Have you tried? Have you considered? Yeah.
But I've seen a lot of, young people who, like, you have all this amazing privilege and opportunity. You should be happy.
Yeah.
And maybe there's a chemical imbalance. I get it. But if you just made those small steps, I think you will find something really special about what you're doing. Regardless if you have a Nina, if you have Ableton, if you have a 303, you have a 303 clone.
Yeah.
I get it all the time. What should I buy? What should I buy? Buy whatever the fuck you can afford. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah.
No one cares, my gear. I'm only privileged to this because I've been doing it 35 years. So when we bought this gear, this was all that we had. And I was stupid enough to hold on to it and not sell it.
Yeah.
Because I never thought it would turn into like this kind of career. We didn't think like that. But today, young people have to think about what they're going to do, next week, next month. And I understand. I'm not dismissing it. It's important to be...
Sure. Yeah.
But creativity doesn't have a time scale.
No.
The scale of time is based on your happiness. If it's not making you happy, make a correction, make the adjustment.
Yeah.
Do you need a dub delay? Do you need a reverb? Do you need, a great filter? I think one of your superpowers really is helping early career artists, and artists of any type, I should say, help articulate not only the very specific kind of, technical technique or craft, but you're also very good at giving them the vocabulary that they need to describe what they're doing. Because as someone who's taught, the first thing I say to people, it doesn't matter if you know how to use the compressor or the mixer, it doesn't matter. Tell me what you like and why you like it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell you what music I like. I can tell you that afterwards. So I would say to students, okay, tell me a piece of music you like. I'll put them on. Tell me a piece of music that you like, that you love this week. Doesn't matter. I don't care if it's a genre that you're exploring, you're not exploring. But tell me why you like it.
But that's...
I don't say things, it makes me happy or something. No. Okay, now, if you want to be a professional musician, right, or producer, tell me what you're hearing. What are you hearing?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now go and fucking copy it. Because that's how we learn how to write as children, right? It's, what is it? Copy, combine, transform. We literally copied how we wrote the words, literally copied. Then we started to combine our sensibility of language and the world around us and start to write our own words. Then we completely transformed into our own language. So it's the same thing with music of any genre. That's why I could teach. It didn't matter the genre, even though I was more specific towards dance music styles. It's like, if you can tell me why you like that piece of music, you'll be an amazing producer, musician, DJ, what have you. And it's like, and it was amazing that you had these really talented musicians who had learned a traditional instrument like piano or a string instrument, a guitar or voice, but they couldn't describe why they liked a piece of music.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, I thought that, I think, and I'd say that's your biggest obstacle.
Interesting. Yeah.
Because then what they can do is they understand that they go to channels such as yours, and then you help them transform what they think they like to how to actually, how to craft it.
Yeah. I think you got this, like, you have that thing of, that classic advice of like, oh, just use your ears or whatever, but that's a problem because you can sometimes, for example, in the beginning stages, let's say you don't know how to do a mix down or something, and you can just tell something's not right about your song, but you don't know what you don't know. So you're like, something's not right, but I don't know even the words to Google to figure out what's
exactly
how to get closer. So then bringing those unknown unknowns into, I know I don't know some, like, for example, now I know I don't know enough about dub mixing. Start the learning journey of me going down that rabbit hole and finding out more,
Yeah. I think I guess my biggest critique of producers these days, or I guess early career artists, I should say, is they're too destination driven. They want a particular result that they can't really articulate. Some of them can't articulate it. And for me, when I make music, which is always improvised, even in the studio, my whole studio is set up so I stand up. There's nothing, there's no computer. The computer is right here in front,
Yeah.
The computer's just a tape recorder for me.
Yeah.
But I'm always improvising. I'm always just pairing a box with a different box and the mixer becomes an important arranger, as you know.
Yeah.
What was I getting at? I lost my train of thought. I'm saying that.
People are too destination focused.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't have a preconceived idea of what something will sound like. I'm waiting for it to emerge, or to emerge from the piece of clay that I'm pulling off the pieces.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it was DeSantis who said that in that Ableton book.
Oh yeah.
Which is, start with the block of clay and start to pull it away. So create an incredible density of sound.
Yeah.
And then start to strip it away, and then you have your track.
Yeah. Subtractive method. Yeah.
Yeah. Instead of starting with a blank canvas.
Yeah.
You start with a blank canvas in music, and you throw something and it's like, it looks shit. It's gonna look shit until you put a whole lot and start pulling it away. So it's always, construction and deconstruction. And you said something about kind of, when you create certain patterns that are melodic for you. The difference for me is that the melody will come from the collision of beats, rhythms, because I'm pitch deaf. I don't actually understand pitch. So maybe it could be maybe one of my downfalls, but I can't, when I've had to play with real musicians, I kind of kept quiet. Like, I will try and fake it.
Yeah. Interesting.
And I've had musicians say, okay, so can you do the A, B, C, D, whatever it is? And I'm like, I just kind of, what is it? No. And I'm like, okay, so that's, but I actually don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I will just keep trialing different things. So I go, yeah, that's kind of it.
Yeah.
And then people who are good friends will say, just show me where to enter the notes. I'll enter some notes. It's like, that's not me then. Then you don't need me. You want you with this sound.
Sure. Yeah.
Which is nice.
Like, I'm a bit of an amateur pianist. Like, I'll be able to like cover pop songs or something in a rudimentary way, right? So, which is like enough music theory for me to engage with pretty much most tonal genres that aren't too jazzy. But last year I got into doing live jams for the first time. And that was crazy to me because, my piano teacher was like, Oscar, I think it's time for you to join a jam. And I was like, what the fuck? No way. No, not with other people. And that made me realize how solo music had been for me up until that point. Like, it's always been a very, like, you conceive it in your mind and then you do it alone in the world. And then going to a jam or like just having some friends over and like just the thing of like, okay, we're just going to play one note. We're just going to play one note. And then that creates like a moment and suddenly we're listening to each other and something magical is happening. And it's like, it's a magic experience, Well,
that's a 303. That's modular synths. That's,
yeah.
You only need to start somewhere. So
Sure.
That's actually when I perform live, I turn the modular on and I don't have any save patterns or I don't even use the same modules for every show.
Yeah.
So all I do is I just find a starting spot, and don't forget I've got the noise of the club or the venue. So I'm trying to create something like, okay, this kind of sounds okay, but then I have to, as you say, you have to go to that fear.
Yeah.
You have to go right to your fear, to that thing that is going to scare the living shit out of you, and then you bring that kick drum in, and you've got to either own it or get rid of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I was lucky enough to see you perform live near Superbooth a few weeks ago, and that was a super rowdy kind of punky electro techno set. Maybe can you tell me a little bit about what are you doing up there? What have you got with you? What are the basic building blocks of what's going on?
I don't know what I'm doing up there. what are the basic building blocks? Well, it's, my rig is always revolves around, so technically, gear-wise, it's a mixer, and I love the play differently mixers because I feel that they are, as everyone has alluded to, they're like an instrument. So it's that whole dub aesthetic, I should say, sonic aesthetic. There's always a 909 of some type. I don't bring my real 909 anymore because it's more of a trophy, but that's where it all kind of started. So I will have like a TR09 or a TR8, which I love as well. And the 909 is always the engine, the pulse, constantly. And there'll be just a shitload of patterns written in, but I will also write on top of the patterns whilst I'm performing. So I'm not kind of precious. And sometimes I will, play a pattern and I don't know what the patterns are. I'll know, okay, I've got some fills over here, but otherwise the main patterns, I don't know what I've got. And it's funny because sometimes I'll hit a pattern whilst I'm performing and I go like, oh fuck, I must have done this in a different show,
Yeah,
so I'll have to deconstruct it quickly, which is all part of the show. Then there's a 303. I don't tend to bring out a real 303 anymore, so I think last count I had about 23 303s.
What? What? Holy shit.
Yeah, holy fucking shit, that's how fucking stupid I am.
What the fuck? Okay. That perfect moments off the top of the dome, top 303s. Put you on the spot.
I have never in my life, since 1988, I have never heard a 303 I didn't like. Right? So I get this question a lot because I said, oh, you're the acid guy. So which is the 303 you like? There's so many I haven't even tried.
Yeah.
And it's like, I haven't heard a 303 I didn't like. Because in my PhD, I think I wrote that there has been 2 hardware clones, not software, there's been 2 hardware clones of the 303 since its demise in 82 or 83. Yeah?
Yeah.
So there must be over now 80 or 90 different hardware clones, not software.
Sure.
And each 303 clone or emulation, whatever you want to call it, all has a nuance that is specific to that quirk. And I remember in the 90s, people were getting rid of 303s. Saying, well, what would I fucking use that for? It sounds, I could get that sound anywhere. And that's right. You could pretty much get, as you know, a 303 sound from anything that has a low-pass filter, monophonic. But what people have forgotten, it's the sequencer. It's that stupid sequencer. It's not just the sound. We're privileged today to every sound imaginable. But what we don't have is how we're moving a sound across time, which is really important. So that's why I say I have never heard a 303 clone that I didn't like. I mean, I really love my originals. I really love the Avalon. I do like the Behringer ones. I've got no problem with that. I love my MC202. I love the Atlantis, which is more like 101, but I love my 101 as well. So it's not, and the 303 was a copy of something else as well, which was the Firstman SQ-1. You may not know about that.
I did not know about that.
That was, the 303 was a copy of that. So
Amazing.
Even the 303 is, the Roland TB303 is not actually the first 303. So we've got the 909, we've got a 303, we've got the mixer, then we have a modular synth.
Yep.
And a modular synth can be big, small, and again, it's never the same it's never the same arrangement of modules. I'm always changing it up because that helps me create more accidents. It helps me create more variety. It stops me from getting bored, and it helps every show be unique as well. There's also another drum machine or a synth. Then there's the Octatrack. So the Octatrack tends to be, I'm always using the Octatrack to resample different sources. So the Octatrack tends to be the module that goes into the Octatrack, or a 303, or it could be a machine drum, it could be a syntax, it could be a DFAM. Again, some of the choices I make before a show are literally 5 minutes before I have to pack up.
Okay. And so whatever's going into the Octatrack is sort of hardwired per show. Like for this show, it's the modular going into the Octatrack. Correct. Like you make that decision differently.
That's right. Yeah. And then, these days I've now got the Nina with the new multi-track sequencer because it's become like this polyphonic groove box.
Yeah.
And it's a monster of a synth, and it sounds fucking massive. Anyway, then there's a bunch of effects. So there'll be a delay. There'll be either the Zen delay or the eventide, time factor and space, or it could be a chaos pad. Again, it depends. What kind of dictates the gear I take is the space I'm giving. I've been given by the event or the promoter, and also the time that I have to set up.
Yeah.
And the time. So all those factors actually inform the gear I take.
Yeah.
There's times where I will take an extra box, like maybe I'll take the syntax or a DFAM, or even sometimes I'll take, the Pulsar 23.
Love that.
Or a second 303, and I won't have space on the table. I did a recent show in Australia before I left to go to Germany to Superbooth, and I had the analog rhythm, the Mark 1, and I really wanted to use it because I was actually creating some new patterns. I thought, I really want to use this. Again, I got to the gig, there wasn't room for it.
Yeah.
So I don't have time to stop my phone and say, you've got to give me the room. You really have to improvise when you're setting up as well.
Sure.
And that actually helps put me into a mindset that maybe I don't like, but it helps generate new ideas because now I've created an extra limitation, which is scary. So I understand how people feel. But more gear doesn't always equate to a better sound at all. And for many years, I would say, I kind of felt like that. But I then think, okay, go back to the first gigs I did, which was with a 909, a 303, and a 101.
Yeah.
One effects box. That was it. That's all I had. Yeah. And you had to make good with just that. Yeah. So, and I remember even, I've said this in other interviews, I've actually said, I was performing and I'd get this amazing response, and I would say to like some close friends, I said, but it's really just a drum machine in this silly old synth. I mean, anyone could do it, I used to say. But then people who would mentor me and say, yeah, but it's not about the gear, it's actually about your approach and your filter.
Sure.
The greatest filter we have is our body.
It's like going to a stand-up comedy show and then going, yeah, but they're just using their voice. I've got a voice. There's nothing special about them using their voice. It's like, yeah, but no, you're saying something with that voice, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And exactly. And I think audiences, whether they know you or they don't know you, they will understand a genuosity that's coming from the performer, whoever the performer is. I have that whole punk approach because that's kind of where I come from. It's like I take my cues from a punk show. I will stop the music. And,
I saw that. I loved it. Yeah.
And I will say something, and I will wind the crowd up, or or I'll literally ask for some water because I didn't have time to grab water or something like that.
Yeah.
So, and people go, oh, like, what's going on here? I've heard people say, what is the DJ doing? Right? And I laugh at that. I love that, right? Because I'm not DJ.
Yeah,
and
sure.
It's all improvised. So that's why it's also important to be as close to the audience as possible, even with all the modular. And their venues and promoters say, yeah, but with security, I said, no, let the audience be. It's okay. I will deal with if someone pulls a cable out, which they don't do. Most people are well behaved.
Yeah.
And you just have security there that can just tell if someone's going to get a bit too close. But don't, I also allow people to interact with me and come and touch the machines as well, like maybe the Chaos pad or the fade on the track.
Yeah.
Because that's what people remember. Oh, fuck, I got to touch, it's because you are part of the audience. I'm feeding off your energy.
Yeah.
So they're the most important module in my setup.
Yeah.
I'm not... whilst I'm there to entertain the audience have a critical role as providing me the fuel to perform.
Yeah.
That's the hardest thing when I've played gigs where there's been not many people. That's the hardest thing for me to do.
Right. Yeah.
Because I'm looking to them, not the 303 or the 909 or the modular or what am I going to do with this oscillator or that drives me insane.
Yeah.
I would turn to if my manager's there, I'll say like, fucking hell, he'll try and whistle or do something to get me kind of hyped or something because that's what I need. So again, the gear is always modular, just as the audience are modular for me as well, and everything can be interchangeable except the audience.
Sure. Yeah. Makes sense.
Sometimes I may not be able to do a gig. I might have only a small gig to do, and they don't want to advertise my name, and I'll just come with a 909 and a 303 into the Octatrack.
That's cool, though. Yeah.
I remember years and years ago, a friend of mine said, oh, come and play at this famous club in Melbourne, which I've done for years and years, called Revolver. And he said, oh, just come and play, but you got to be on top of the speaker stand or something like that. So I bought like the TR8, the Analog 4, and the 303. No effects, no mixer.
Wow.
And he said, just like, we'll just say, just play half an hour. And I can't remember if you advertised me or not. I can't remember. And I thought, fuck, I was petrified.
Right.
But in a good way.
Because of the status of the club, kind of, and what you assumed expectations would be or something.
No, because I thought, like, I have the smallest amount of gear that I haven't done something like that for, 15, 20 odd years.
Yeah.
And he said, look, we'll just we'll play it by ear. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, I think I ended up playing over an hour and a half. It was an hour and 15 minutes. They loved it. And I was literally, there wasn't even a booth. I was standing on top of the gear was on top of a speaker moving around as it was jumping around with the subs. And it just, again, it reaffirmed to me, you don't need a lot of gear. And you can use the same thing over and over again, so long as there are, there's incremental changes, that you are creating changes over time. Because people are tuned to different things. You
mean like in the sonic palette, like what you're bringing sonically? Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you say changes over time, do you mean bringing in different timbres over the course of a set?
Yeah, you're shifting. There's a slight timbral shift.
Yeah.
But not too far away from where you began.
Yeah.
If you think remember you're talking about Surgeon and a very limited, what looks like a limited amount of gear at Superbooth.
Yeah.
But he would extract the most leverage out of all that stuff, even though most people look at it and go, oh, that doesn't seem like a lot. A dub delay, a granular synth, a sequencer, and
Yeah.
another sample playback. But really, techno is a kick drum and everything else is just window.
No, I agree. I mean, I see it very much as like curating a couple of energy waves. Like you've got the energy wave of your drums, which you curate. You're like, okay, I'm going to lift the energy up and down, and then I've got my synth voice. I've got like two synth voices, so I'll have one swell while the other one pulls back, and then bring the other one in, and then reprogram a different one, and the energy is just, you're sort of a conductor in an orchestra going, okay, you come in, you go out, you come in, you go out. And the last thing I want to do is get into the nitty gritty of programming patterns because there's just no space. You have to, like, you're manipulating these energy waves. So
that's completely true. But also you may have to be forced to program as well.
Sure.
Sometimes I'm getting bored by a pattern.
Yeah.
And the funny thing, the irony is when I was playing with a 909 and 303, the real 303s, you can't program them on the fly.
Yeah.
You have to stop it and put it into right mode. And
right.
So you can't change, so you're stuck. The 909 also, you have to put into a right mode as well. Or you just leave it in right mode. So that's what kind of Jeff Mills does. He keeps it into a right mode and he's tapping away. But nowadays, the gear is you can go between pattern playback and pattern record at any time. It's way more fluid, which is great for an improviser.
Sure.
And that's why people keep saying, oh, have you used the Circlon? Did you use the Octatrack to sequence everything else? It's like, no, they are all just running literally their own sequences in sync.
Yeah.
Because people would say, oh, what's your master sequencer? It's like, no, I'm playing them off each other. And I've heard this time and time again, oh, the timing of this box or that box is not very tight or this is not very tight. And I'm like, I've heard these conversations and I go, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Because if you want precision, okay, maybe that's important if you're working in a studio, in a very, produced environment. But as an improviser, I'm playing with those nuances. That's what I actually want. I want things to be, slightly forward or behind the clock, slightly sloppy. So I'm trying to I feel that I might be subconsciously trying to correct things.
Yeah.
Turn actually making more of a mess, which then turns into a happy accident into a beautiful mess.
Yeah.
And then becomes techno.
I mean, but just to clarify, you are like MIDI synchronizing these boxes together, right? Like you have
MIDI is the sync, but there are certain boxes that will be like the MC202, which is DIN sync.
Right, sure.
Or a 606, which is DIN sync. So I'll need to use one of the Electron boxes to convert MIDI clock to sync. But yes, primarily, 99% it is just MIDI clock. I'm not sending MIDI notes to any other device. They are all playing their own onboard or inbuilt sequences. Sometimes I might use the CV out of a 303 into a multiplier or into another oscillator on a modular synth and kind of collide tonal sequences. Again, I don't know what will work.
Sure. One of the things I'm excited to explore further is at Superbooth I was introduced to this God Eater pedal by Animal Factory. And it's got this CV input that basically you can take CV from the modular and acts as a sidechain control, creating these like waves of distortion over your stuff. And I don't know, the way those speak to each other is exciting.
I mean, like with modular synths, I avoided it. I avoided it for years.
Yeah.
I remember when Dieter Dope first started the MS404 because I saw it straight away. I actually contacted him back in the early 90s saying, I'll be a distributor in Australia for you. And that's how the Eurorack.
Yeah.
So I avoided it for many years because I knew it would just be crack for me.
Yeah. But then at some point you gotta indulge, no? Like it's.
Well, yeah, totally. So it started with the IntelliGel and the Moog
Yeah,
Mother 32s, and it's like, okay, I can't avoid this.
yeah. When you were,
So that's the good thing about modular and improvisation is that it's like what you're saying, experimenting with CV. There's, people will say, I want to start with modular. Well, just go buy what you can afford.
yeah, yeah, sure.
The
Yeah,
best way is listen to stuff online and buy the stuff that you think sounds shit, because that's the stuff that will sound good.
yeah. Another, on the one hand, I want to go further into this modular conversation, but I have a different question I want to ask first. Do you ever jam with other musicians?
All the time. Love to.
Yeah,
I love to do it because, again, it doesn't even matter what gear they're using. They are providing another filter,
sure.
right? They are providing another musical feedback source,
Yeah,
because they will say, "Oh, that's good, that's shit," So I love that because it actually helps me selfishly. It helps me understand more about what I'm doing and
yeah,
what may or may not work.
yeah,
So and quite simply, the whole collaborative thing is, I think, very important for an improviser.
sure. Yeah,
As it's an important aspect because one can, with this kind of music, can be very insular, regardless if you're an improviser or someone working in front of a computer. It becomes very insular very quickly.
yeah,
And it can be, it's a challenge to know when something is done, or you've touched it enough or played with it enough. It's an ongoing challenge. So when you collaborate with someone else, it's great to say, you come and touch whatever you need of my stuff and I'll do the same. And that helps me. Oh, so that's what you're kind of listening to.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So then something beautiful comes from it. So I love, I have another project with a drummer.
Yeah,
My friend Tarek, who's an incredible drummer, producer, guitarist, and a DJ, but incredible drummer. And we've had iterations of this project. It's now called the Dumb Machine.
the
Very
drum
punk,
machine. Cool.
but I'm playing 303 Pulsar and some synths, but not even modular. Only 2 or 3 boxes, and syncing. So he's got a TR8. He's got a drum machine that he's sending me clock or the tempo, completely improvised.
Whoa, cool.
And he's like smashing the shit out of it. And like we can play to dance audiences or rock audiences. And again, that's something kind of special.
Wow.
And that's different to playing with someone who's got like another modular rig or another drum machine. So, and that kind of helps me embrace my punk roots, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's kind of a post-punk thing, but I don't think it even has a genre associated with it.
No.
Tarek says, "Oh, it sounds like early Chemical Brothers," but I don't think it does.
Interesting. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, there was all that like Chemical Brothers and Fatboy Slim and all those are using a lot of like acoustic drums in their production, which is something that I feel like a lot of the techno that I've listened to in the last 10 years has none of that. Like ever since like minimal techno, it's become like all very synthesized and this use of acoustic drums. Yeah.
See, techno was a catch-all for us. Sure. By the early 90s. So techno was anything that was kind of electronic and dance music.
Yeah, yeah.
These days, I don't even know what techno actually is, even though I'm probably still referring to what I thought was techno. I'm not that stupid, but I think it's splintered a lot, and that's the kind of the corporatization of electronic dance music in general.
Yeah,
because it's
sure.
There's a lot of money in it that's corrupted. I don't want to sound like I'm anti money in the scene or anything like that, but it has distorted
and
creativity in many ways. From from the person making to publishing labels and also events, and and I don't think anyone is. I don't think there's one particular villain at all.
No, I don't think anyone's specifically trying to be malicious or something. But this is like capitalism, right? I mean, that's and I fully agree with that in general. But even more benignly, like people are also just like creating tribes for themselves and creating subcultures for themselves that splinter off from, as soon as something becomes too popular, things reject it and splinter off. So now you've got like,
which I'm all for, but it's I think it's somewhat more difficult to be individual and to move away from all these amazing vehicles that give people, the entry to market is completely collapsed, which is an amazing thing. If you're, back in my day, you had to make tapes and send them, and you had to go meet people in person. There was no, the internet didn't exist.
Yeah.
Nowadays, you can publish something immediately, and it's amazing.
I feel like I had this kind of aha moment a few weeks ago, because obviously this is a fatiguing topic, but like the topic of AI comes up again and again, and let's keep this chapter short because I actually hate talking about it. But
so do I.
Well, yeah. So, one thing that an aha moment for me was like to really like to do something meaningful as an artist. I feel like you have to care a lot about the thing that you're working on, like the art that you're working on. You have to have opinions about it. You have to be like, I like this, I don't like this, I've thought about it, I've digested it. And the advent of AI actually makes it like possible to care less, and therefore I think it doesn't help people become artists at all, because it makes you kind of more careless about the product that you're putting out into the world. You're like, I guess I'm just putting this out there. And
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. It's like saying buying an expensive, chef's knife won't make you a great chef.
Exactly. Yeah.
So buying the most expensive pizza oven in the world won't equate to making a great pizza.
Yeah.
And so I completely agree with you. My take on AI is just that it's just another tool, and those who are touting that this is like the end, or creatives have to be, have to watch out. They are the corporations who want your money, because it's just going to be another advertising platform. That's all it is.
Yeah.
AI is, for most part, it's inane. When it comes to kind of creativity, it's like you're saying, looks the same. It's been created or made by this AI. It's not even the word AI. It's not even artificial intelligence, because it's been created by some people in Silicon Valley or wherever they exist.
It's just very homogenized.
Totally.
Yeah.
So people, I can say, and maybe it's controversial when I say this, but if you're scared of AI as a creative, then I would question whether you really are a creative. As you're saying, you're not owning what you do.
I think I would argue that the fears of AI in the context of capitalism make a lot of sense. I think it's going to do a lot of capitalism damage, like damage to humans under capitalism. But purely within art, it's slightly a different discussion. I would agree with you there. Yeah. But anyway,
it's like all those sci-fi films, like it's just going to create more advertising. That's all it is. What's it going to be? Advertising, and it'll be a way of employing less people to create more advertising. It's going to be something as kind of inane as that. I don't even think we've seen the potential for AI and creativity. So what I think the interesting part is, how will people use this to make some great creative work and outcomes? But otherwise, I just think it's a boring corporate conversation.
Agreed.
Keep it, not to dismiss you. I'm just saying.
No.
people should keep away from it. It's like, write your resumes or help you write, your bio. Yeah, that's what it's good for.
Yeah,
but again, it requires your input
yeah,
to have an output.
yeah,
Just like a modular synth or a drum machine.
yeah.
You can have a 909 drum machine, or it's, the 909 drum machine is possibly one of the worst sounding drum machines on the planet.
What makes you
But
say
what
that?
did we do? We kept listening to it, and it became part of, the culture that we are, I need a 909. But I've heard people who have bought those emulations of a 909, and they would ring me and say, does yours sound like this? Does it sound... Yeah, it sounds shit. But play it on a huge, PA, then you'll see the difference.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not sure whether the analogy is drawn to AI, but the thing
That
is
doesn't matter. That was I found that that's actually an interesting thing about the PA and the physicality of it, because I remember preparing my live set here, and I was a bit nervous because I'm like, oh, I'm a YouTuber now, everyone's watching, it needs to be good from the first time, I can't, all these like stupid thoughts. And so I was like trying to make sure that what was coming out of what I was going to send to the sound system was as close to like a mastered track as possible in terms of balance and whatever. And I was worrying, and then I arrive at the gig and I'm doing like a sound test, and I like turn up my kick drum and the bass line, and I'm like, oh, that'll do. Yeah, that'll do. That's just fine. Like my worries were suddenly completely gone. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've also had this, from my experience, one of the differences between a DJ, sonically I'm saying, between a DJ and a live artist is that the live artist should have more dynamic range.
Yeah.
Should be completely unhinged. And I've had people, nowadays you can buy lots of different compressors, and, boxes have built-in compressors, but I err on the side of caution using compressors because it's the dynamics that people are really hearing and makes a point of difference to people who are DJing.
Sure.
And I didn't understand that when I first started doing this. I didn't understand dynamics and compression.
Sure, yeah.
And, through time I started to understand it. And that's why I would remember, like, playing at Revolver, I would start, like, bang, bang, bang with the 909. And everyone from the side room would all start coming in. And that would be my calling card. I was like, hey, I'm about to play. So bang, bang, bang. Because it sounded so incredibly loud and different.
Yeah.
So even if a record had that, because the record would sound like it was mastered,
Sure,
played through a stylus, going through a DJ mixer, through to the PA. But when you play and, like, watch Jeff Mills, watch any time Jeff Mills just touches a 909, and everyone goes like, what the fuck is this? And it's 4 or 5 sounds, and he can sustain the crowd for 20 minutes with just the 909.
yeah, sure.
And it's like, I was doing exactly the same thing, realizing that's all they need to hear.
Yeah.
That's techno.
Sure. Love it.
So that's why, be mindful of, I've had MPCs that would sound really shit, early MPCs, and sound guys will say, just whack a compressor on the end of it. And I'm like, tried it, and it was like, I think it'll make it sounding worse.
Yeah.
You've got to be prepared to show people all your warts and acne, that's part of being real.
Yeah.
Like, what do they say? Like, lots of Hollywood actors have all their teeth done and their face done, but they're not real. My teeth are all fucked up, and
Yeah.
I look like Uncle Fester, and I mean, maybe I could be your stud double, but but it is about being. It is about being raw and honest. You can't change. Philosophically, you can't really change the way you look. I mean, you can do some things and make some adjustments, but we can't really change how we look. And I think that also applies to performing live.
Yeah.
You've only got a set of limited gear on stage, and you just have to make good with what you've got.
Sure.
That's why, controversially, I say, you're playing with a laptop, I question whether that's live, because I know you can play live with a laptop. I understand all that. But the laptop is a studio unto itself.
Yeah, I agree.
So for me, a laptop equates to pre-recorded,
Yeah,
predetermined
yeah,
music.
that's
Now,
it.
I know lots of people do great things with a laptop live
Sure.
on stage. I'm not trying to dismiss that. But for me, I couldn't do that.
Yeah,
There was one stage where I actually had a laptop on stage a long time ago. I would just have the clip things in Ableton, and I would actually just trigger just really short loops and clips completely randomly, but I would still have the 909 and 303
yeah,
into a mixer. So again, I was using it as a very, it's like, again, one module in the
sure.
studio stuff.
Yeah,
But I haven't used the computer for, I don't know,
yeah.
15, 20 years on
And
stage.
I agree. I'm the same. I tends to be a very big turnoff for me as an audience member, because I feel like you're not present. I feel like my listening brain goes out the window when my eyes get too engaged. Like I'm looking at something, so I'm no longer really listening in the present moment. So yeah, I also like. I once was doing an acoustic musician jam, and I found this super interesting. Right, you're playing the piano or whatever, someone's playing the guitar or whatever, and then someone had brought like an OPZ or one of those little,
Yeah.
and he had some sequences running on it. And it was cool. We were jamming and we had some nice moments. And then with eye contact and just like general awareness, you could tell me and the guitarist, we were like decrescendoing. We were kind of like on the way to fading out. And the guy who was like inside of the sequencer was not paying attention to the room at all. And he just kept going and kept going. And we were all like kind of almost in panic mode going, hey, this is completely dissonant to the energy of what we're collectively doing. And at the end, we would just have to like just all stop. And that person like 20 seconds later went, oh, we've stopped? Stop. I was like, no, we're not.
Yeah, there has to be, a form of risk.
Yeah.
There has to be a form of risk between the artist and their tools and their instrument.
Yeah. For me, it's got
And
to do with like.
if there's no risk, then it's predetermined.
Yeah. I fully agree with that.
Predetermined is, I guess, what I'm trying to say to be neutral here is there's nothing wrong with predetermined music. I mean, I like listening to recorded music, but to me, that's not a performance.
Yeah.
One of the examples I remember a couple of years ago, Orbital came to Australia to play. And I'm a huge fan of Orbital. And someone got me a ticket. I went along. And I think one of the sound guys, Yumi, and they had all their synths set up. It was like, they had every fucking synth available on stage. And the production, the visuals are amazing. And I'm listening to it and I'm thinking, it sounds, like the quality of sound and the production was amazing, but it just sounded like their records.
Yeah.
And I think, like, you've got all this gear on stage. Do something to show me that it really is, there's some risk.
Agreed.
So, and look, people love that show, and I don't want to be, I'm not trying to shit can Orbital whatsoever, but I just thought, for me, it didn't have any risk.
I had the same going to see Bicep. Bicep did the same. They do this thing where they face each other with their hands pointing towards some gear, but as far as I could tell, and as far as the synchronized light show told me, it was just a medley of their studio album.
This is the thing. I've heard that of Bicep as well. And look, and I'm not saying this to say that what I do is greater or lesser or anything like that. It's just different. And for me, that's why I can't watch DJs. I could watch Jeff Mills or a great hip hop DJ interact, but and then you see these live acts, and I'm not saying techno, I'm just talking in general with electronic dance music, but again, it's all predetermined. It's very, it's greatly thought about and curated. What's the point? Just put on a CD or a record or a USB stick and just play it back. But things like seeing Luke Slater. We used to have a big touring festival event called Big Day Out in Australia in the late 80s and early 90s. And they call it the boiler room, but it's not this boiler room that you know. It was just this huge tent, which, they had Underworld and Ronnie Size, some huge acts. And he was one of the main acts in the boiler room this particular year. I think I was on the tour as well. And he played live. He had this amazing, huge console. And what he did, I was just like in fucking awe. Like for the first 15, 20 minutes, there was no kick drum. And he just like slowly just built up this energy of the kick drum. And like when that 909 kick came in, the audience just went absolutely berserk.
Yeah.
Still today, I remember it. And that was 25 years ago.
Hell yeah.
I'll never forget. It's like, that's fucking live. And he was playing his tracks in a kind of curated way, but it felt like he was in full control.
Yeah.
Yet he was improvising as well. So again, going back to a dub aesthetic as well.
Yeah.
So he was controlling
yeah.
What he needed to in a very,
That's so good.
That was amazing.
Poetically, I actually got to see Luke Slater 2 weeks ago in Berghain after Superbooth, after we met at Superbooth. The next day was Luke Slater at Berghain. So that was pretty special. But yeah, I agree with this. Like, I feel like I want to at all times I want to consider my live set setup as an instrument that I have dynamic expression over. So if I decide that I want it to get really thin and fresh, I can bring it to that place. If I decide I want it to get like almost like a whisper, I can bring it to that place. If I want it to be just like a low, warm, round groove, I can bring it to that place. Or a loud, overwhelming climax moment, bring it to that place. Like, you can hit all these different emotional palettes through the techniques that you're using, but that you're not locked into a particular song has to go from there to there to there. It's like, no, it's whatever I feel the moment needs or what I need or what the audience needs.
Yeah, and I think one of the easiest things, the way to do that is that you can have the sources of your sounds, be it from a particular all-in-one synth or a modular or a drum machine. But again, I'm going to come back to the mixer. The mixer plays that vital role.
Yeah, for sure.
And the mixer that you use should be able to thin out the sounds, high pass, low pass filters.
Sure. Yeah.
So while something is kind of looping, you should be able to grab that sound source or that track or that channel and be able to thin it out.
Yeah.
And do that over multiple tracks and know when you want to bring something in and out. I've heard people say, the way you transition is really great. And I'm like, transition? I'm not really, it's all, not to be dismissive of people, but again, they think it's something, technically wonderful or spectacular. And it's not, because everything that we do is just relative to the loudness of something.
Sure, yeah.
How loud something gets. So filtering will be a difference of volume, a perceived volume.
Sure.
You will know this yourself. Sound design, what do you need? You need your sound source and a filter.
Yeah.
Or EQ. Same thing. Okay? So you can create, intensity with the different spectrum of sound.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
it. And that spectrum of sound really is what it comes out as a perception of how loud or soft something is.
Yeah.
And that's literally what a DJ is doing, is creating different levels between two recorded pieces.
Sure.
So you just adopt that to your different boxes and sound sources, and voila, you've got your arrangement.
And voila.
You've got your different emotions and energy levels, and be able to construct and deconstruct.
Yeah.
So the mixer is such an important tool, and it doesn't matter if you're using, I've still got my old CR1604, the old Mackie, that's what we used to use because that was, we pulled it out of the studio and took it live.
Sure.
It's got a shitty 3-band EQ.
Yeah,
it's enough.
It's fine.
3-band EQ at level,
Yeah.
And even if you're working inside the box, like in Ableton or whatever it may be, again, EQ8, volume, in Bitwig. All you need is a great EQ or filter and volume. That's why I love the idea of Schwayman have, what is it, the QMMF or whatever it is. It's all these filters. It's like, and I think I saw Surgeon use one ages ago. It's like, I've always wanted one, but Maho's not making them, or maybe she is. It's like, that's why I love the play differently as well, because it doesn't feel like, it's definitely not a DJ. It doesn't feel like a DJ mixer, because I swore for 40 years I would never buy a DJ mixer.
Okay.
But here we are talking about it. Because it has like a high and low pass filter, so it feels you're sculpting the sound, and you can always have the thing about people like us, we always want to touch something all the time. We're trying to entertain ourselves.
Yeah.
So you can keep playing with the sound or the filters, and you'll get something musical and creative. So that's to answer your question. I mean, that's to speak to your, what you're talking about is, being able to make something thin or thick and carve these sounds throughout your set. And all I'm saying is it's easier than what most people think.
Agreed. I think the biggest aha for me was often like, I've got two main synth voices in my modular, and both of them right after the oscillator have an MS-22 filter, which is like a high and low filter at the same time. So with one button, I can like bring it out like so thin that you can't hear it anymore. So I'll often set up my pattern, get everything ready, so the pattern is actually playing at full blast, and then I'll just lower that threshold, and it'll just the synth pattern will sort of land like coming from the sky. It'll just land, right in the middle.
And a great way to also, if people are new to this and you're not sure about what works or what doesn't, record your set whilst you're doing it.
Yeah.
Record it. I actually have told people that I teach, all right, so you can't do gigs. Maybe they haven't been able to do gigs. But in your bedroom or in your studio, you set up your live rig and you hit record and you don't stop.
Exactly.
20 minutes, half an hour, 40 minutes. You do not stop.
Yeah.
That's the most important thing.
Exactly.
I think time is a great constraint to help with everything from productions to performance.
Yeah.
Because when you're limited by time, you have to make good. Right?
Sure.
And I say to them, right, record something, 20 minutes, half an hour. Don't even set a timer. I think it's good to not set a timer, because you also need to have a sense of how long you've been playing for.
Yeah.
I never have. I've seen artists, they have a stopwatch, and I don't have a stopwatch.
Mm-hmm.
I either feel that I'm coming to the end of it, or I'll have the sound guy say, 1 minute, 2 minutes left.
Sure.
I like it like that. It's like, oh, fuck, I've only got 2 minutes, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
So for the early career live artist, record your set at home, do the 15, 20 minutes, however long it is, then don't listen to it.
Yeah.
Hang on. Don't listen to it. Don't stop and then wanting to listen. Go do other shit. Come back to it in a week's time. Live a life where your ears are getting different music, your partner's complaining to you, you're eating the wrong food, you had a good day, you had a bad day. Come back to it in a week.
Yeah.
Then sit down and actively listen to it.
Yeah.
With a pen and paper.
Yeah.
And make the notes that are specific to you.
Yeah.
And listen to it without stopping as well. Don't stop the recording.
Sure.
You know, and then kind of do your analysis or critique. That is the only way people will get good at this before they're given the opportunity to play in front of an audience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like the part that they won't be able to tell is how a PA sounds, and that's kind of important, as we've been discussing. But I think that's a really good constraint. And even if you're making music and not wanting to perform live, and people often will ask me, okay, how do I know when a track is finished? How do I know when a track is finished? And I'm sure you've done this on your channel as well, but it's time. You set, okay, half an hour. This is as much time I'm giving to just mixing or doing what I need to do. That alarm goes off, your track is done.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you don't build in any limitation.
Yeah.
Then you're forever going to be working on it.
Sure.
And I really feel half an hour, if you've been working on this track for however long, it's probably done already.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I could not bear to work on a track longer than 2 hours in total.
Yeah.
Right? Which is like setting it up, jamming, recording, which could be half an hour, coming back a week later, having listened, doing an edit, and done. 2 hours, absolute maximum.
Yeah.
Absolute maximum. And I've heard people say, oh, well, you could do... no, that's it.
Yeah.
You can choose A or B, you know?
Yeah.
You can choose to take it or not take it. That's okay. I have no problem if you don't want to take it.
Yeah.
But like you were saying earlier, I also have a very weird relationship with recorded music because my value has always been the performance.
Sure. Yeah.
For 30 plus years, I've heard the promoter say, we're going to record it, we're going to record it, we're going to record it, we're going to record it. I can count on my hands how many times someone has recorded my live set in front of an audience successfully. Because if they record it, it's not going to capture the experience or the feeling.
Yeah.
You know? Mm-hmm. And sometimes you listen back and go, what the fuck?
Yeah.
That sounded shit. And it only sounds shit because it's not in context.
Yeah. Agreed.
It's not that you know, technically it's wrong or bad. It's just like it doesn't have the context. So it's odd. So I think that time is a great way to motivate someone to finish, let go, and to know when something is done. I think it's the easiest thing. Not a mastering plugin, not another mastering plugin. You know, we're going to buy another mastering plugin. You give it to another mastering AI. It's like, oh my God, it's like, you know, no one cares. If you know, what do they say in the industry? You can't polish a turd.
I was wondering if that was where you were going.
Yeah, you can't polish a turd, but you can roll it in glitter. Is that right? It's like, these days, people have got way too much glitter, but it's still a turd. You know what I mean? It's like if you had a great idea, that great idea manifests itself or presented itself in the first 2 minutes of you performing or creating something.
Yeah.
You know, I know that might go against some of your philosophies and what you teach, but it's like a lot of it happens at the very initial stage.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, I'm so bored of people starting at 0, 0, you know, 1, 1, 1. It's like, what are you doing? I don't even think fucking Mozart wrote music like that. You know what I mean? It's like, it's odd. But again, that's, you know, I feel that I'm a disruptive way of thinking.
Yeah.
The way I think about music is very disruptive, and I know people will not agree, and that's cool too.
Yeah, it's very personal. It's very personal. Cool. Are you happy if we start calling it a day there, more or less?
Yeah, for sure. It's after midnight here, and I'll need to have some water, brush my teeth, and you know.
David, thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Oscar. I didn't expect this to go this long.
No, neither did I, but, you know,
at this time, but you ask really good questions.
Seize the day, you know.
I'm really grateful for this friendship. I'm telling you, I really hope that, you know, we can do more stuff. I don't know what that looks like or seems like.
I also don't know, but I'm open to everything. Yeah, very much appreciated. Have a great day.
You too.
And sleep
Likewise.
well.
Thank you so much.
Ciao.